Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Long Ash Podcast. I'm Chris, and we have a very special guest here today. I feel like we've been trying to make this happen for a while, and it finally happened. Sitting beside me is Casey Mann. He is employed by Casa de Montecristo. For those who have maybe gone to the Casa store in Whippany, New Jersey, I'm sure you've seen him running around like a chicken with his head cut off.
That's my speed usually.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, we're getting together. We're enjoying the Montecristo M right now. But yeah, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
I know I pretty sure I emailed you or hit you up before I went on paternity leave. Funny thing about paternity leave is like you really can't technically talk to anyone about work while you're away. So
of course.
Like, hey, Casey, I'm leaving next week, but when I come back in 3 months.
I'll talk to you in a few months.
Yeah. And I'm sure you're like, I think you basically said, Chris, thanks. Sounds good. Like, I don't know how else you could have responded. Like, you can't plan anything. You can't really plan much when I'm like these last minute, asks and stuff.
Totally. And how's that going for you?
Good. Second kid.
Oh, nice.
Forever exhausted.
Okay, so you know the drill.
Yeah,
right? It's nothing new for you.
No, it's not. It's a good time, and I basically I was off May and June, so I got to enjoy some summer.
Nice.
But no, everything's been good. How have you been?
I'm well. Thank you.
Well?
I'm also doing the same right now. Definitely been enjoying the nice weather, taking it easy, and transitioning in a few different areas of my life right now, but all exciting good things.
Which is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So when did your cigar journey begin?
It's a
How
great
old were
question,
you when you had
know?
how long have you been, I guess, in the industry? What was it about cigars that just made you fall in love with them?
I've been asked this question a lot.
I'm sure.
And
I'm sure.
the first cigar I ever smoked was a La Aurora, and I can't remember the exact blend. I think it was something called a 1784, and I don't really see it around anymore.
Yeah.
The second cigar I ever smoked was a La Aurora Perforito, because the first experience I ever smoked was a really good one. And that was about 13 and a half or 14 years ago.
Damn.
That was my first cigar. I was living in Boston at the time. I'd moved there for school and for personal reasons. And I wasn't planning on being there long. It was just for school. I ended up there for 10 years, and that was my entry into the industry.
Oh, wow.
Or for 9 years.
Were you working at lounges up
So
there?
yes,
or shops?
I helped. I was the operations manager at a place called Cigar and Lounge in Watertown, Massachusetts. Boston was a big cigar city for a lot of years, but then they slowly shut down over time, like Cigar Masters and Gloucester Street, all these famous cigar lounges. It was kind of sad to see, but on the outskirts of Boston, in a suburb called Watertown, there were 2 cigar lounges, and I worked I frequented one called S&A Smoke Shop. They've been there for decades, and they're great. And then I started working at one called Cigar and Lounge, and it was newer at the time, and it was this tiny, tiny place, smaller than this room. They eventually expanded. They bought the convenience store, made them 3 times bigger, and then my journey really started at that lounge.
Was it? So it was a lounge and a store?
Yeah, it was a walk-in humidor and a lounge.
Awesome.
And they weren't really common in Watertown except for the smoke shop down the street. But they literally, it's called S&A Smoke Shop because while they're a lounge too, they only have like 6 to 10 seats there. It wasn't like a full-size lounge like Cigar and Lounge was. And that's where I got my start with smoking cigars and then working in the industry.
How do you like working in the industry? What's that? I don't know. I want to say the fulfillment of it, but what joy do you get of working? Because what you do is different from what I'm doing. We still collaborate on things,
right,
from time to time, but your experience is a lot different than mine.
Yeah, it's definitely, there's significant differences, and there's so much that I don't know about e-com and online business and everything else that you do, because I know you do a ton. But my experience has been really special. The cigar business and community has been an experience like I've never had before. And it will maybe naturally come up, and I wanted to talk about like how important it is to be able to have the option to go and smoke a cigar in a lounge. But that's how I got started. And I used to work in mental health for several years.
Really?
Yeah, I moved to Boston. I went to UMass Boston to get my first degree in the mental health industry. And I was working full-time. My first full-time job in Boston was at a transitional living facility. And I was like a peer counselor kind of person before I had moved up into the more of clinical side of
that
things.
Makes sense that you would work that job.
Why?
Because you just have the personality for it. I feel like you know how to talk to people.
True.
I feel like you know how to connect with people. I feel like you would be very sensitive to the topic of mental health, right?
For sure.
A lot of people aren't, but it just makes sense just how, because I've seen you interact, when you're in your zone at the lounge. I've seen you like interact with people, and it just makes sense that I guess
Fair.
you were to be in that line of work too.
Totally. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
No,
Yeah.
it's but I'm sure that was draining though.
It was draining in ways. It's really easy to burn out in that industry.
Yeah,
I definitely did. I wasn't good with balance, but that's not really why I fully left. Because of the burnout, although I did experience that, I fully left because I wanted to pursue the cigar business more seriously.
So what drew you to it? Was it the people? Was it just the endless, I always say, like the endless knowledge of cigars? What really kind of made you shift careers in that aspect?
So it's something that I made a conscious decision to do, and it's also something that happened naturally. And I'll tell you a little story about it. One of my bosses, my main boss at this transitional living facility, his name is Phil, and he smoked 3 to 5 cigars a day for 30 years. And Phil, when I first started, I was in my, I think I was 20 years old, maybe about to turn 21. I was very young, and he didn't like me. He said to the owner, he said, I don't want Casey working here. He's not ready. He should go through more school. I don't think he's mature enough. And one of the higher ups said, I think everyone in life needs purpose, and I think this will really help Casey find a purpose. And so Phil said, okay, let's give him a shot. And Phil, being the positive guy he is, he genuinely is. Well, he's usually a positive person, but he just didn't think I was ready because he knew me in another light at the time.
Everything you're telling me about Phil,
right,
zero positivity.
Right. Well, he is a really positive person if you meet him, like always singing, laughing, dancing. But one day, probably 2 weeks into the job, Phil said, hey, do you want to smoke a cigar? Because I was always seeing him smoke, and I was always curious about it. And I said, sure. So he brought me to Cigar and Lounge in Watertown, Massachusetts. He bought me my first cigar. It was that La Aurora. Yeah. I lit it up, and not only did I love the experience, and I'll give little reasons why, Phil and I, to this day, 13 and a half years later, are best friends. Phil is one of my best friends. And we ended up not liking each other. He's 15 years older than me. Yeah. We were nothing alike, but a cigar lounge and cigars brought us together. Right. And it's corny and cheesy, and it might sound like a made up story, but it's not. That's my experience. And that was special. That was definitely special.
That's a lot of people's experience. A few episodes ago, we had Michael Herklotz on, and, we were talking about, we're talking about a bunch of stuff. Like I want to talk about cigar etiquette in a lounge. And then he kind of went off on this philosophical speech as he does.
Yeah.
But the moral of it was, lounges definitely bring people together. I remember being in the lounge next door, and I was smoking the Oscar Valladera's, the Leaf by Oscar, that comes wrapped in a tobacco leaf.
Of course.
And some guy next to me was like, oh, your cigar's all messed up. I was like, haha, watch this. And I showed him, and he was like, what? That's how it comes? Yeah. We got to talking, found out he used to be a college athlete back in the day. Now he works down the street. And we were just talking, and I was like, I can't get this at a coffee shop.
Absolutely not.
I definitely don't get. I try to be personable with like our waiters and waitresses when like my wife and I go out or our friends go out, but we're just another table to them,
Yeah,
and
course.
That's kind of not the same vibe at a lounge, Like I think I know like the majority of the people who work next door, and every time I walk in, it's like, what's up, Chris? Hey, Chris. You got Felix calling everyone Pop.
Of course.
And you feel like that. You feel that warmth. You feel like, okay, like you belong, right? I've only been in the industry 6 years, and I was I would say maybe my first 2 years for sure, I was quiet and I was nervous because I was like, this is a world I don't know. Even if I can go on Half Wheel or go on these Reddit, these Reddit blogs about cigar, if I research it and I try to sound smart, there's still like that lack of confidence is still there in my opinion.
For sure.
But when you get to kind of talking to people who've been in the industry for at least 10 plus years, and they're always like, well, what do you like to smoke? What have you tried? And like, you kind of talk to them, like none of you guys next door make you feel like, oh man, he's only been, why is he smoking ABCD?
Right.
Right. You know, there's certain people who have told me, don't ever try that cigar. I've never heard that from, even like when you guys aren't next door for just hanging out bullshitting. Like I've never heard anyone, never heard you guys talk negatively about it.
Yeah, I will never say that. No. I will never say to anyone, never try that cigar, unless they specifically tell me they don't like certain profile or tasting notes.
That's different.
But I never want to rob someone of their experience.
Yeah, because what you like, I might not like, and vice versa. Your palate's probably, I don't know. Your palate's probably a lot stronger than
I smoke full bodied usually. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been saying the past few episodes, I've been gravitating more towards mellow medium cigars with a Connecticut type wrapper.
Totally.
Whether it be Ecuadorian or, just a full blown Connecticut or Connecticut broadleaf. I'm enjoying that right now.
Yeah.
But when I first started, I was like, I felt like I was smoking the Jacob's Ladder brimstone every day. And I'm like,
and that
how
cigar,
am I doing this?
Yeah, totally.
Now I'm smoking. I'm like,
right.
My tolerance went down. But
yeah, man.
But no, I don't think your story into the cigar world is like, you said it was cheesy. I don't think so, because I think a lot of people experience that.
Yeah.
Even, even here at JR, like I've made some great friendships because of this company.
Absolutely.
Right. And it just so happens to be cigars, but then you get to kind of, after your shift ends, go next door and like have a cigar and talk about work or talk about, your life. Over a cigar, it's perfect. I would prefer doing that over a cigar than a drink.
Totally. Me too.
So, yeah, you mentioned something a while ago that you would like to kind of talk about or dive into, like the experience at a lounge.
Yeah.
But before that, so you worked at a lounge in Boston, right? How did you kind of if you could kind of take us through your journey, like, did you...
Totally.
Are you from the area here?
So I'm from the area originally. I grew up in northern New Jersey, but I was born Midtown, and my family's from New York City originally.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
So you've been around the area a lot. So did you come... When you left Boston, you came back home?
Yes.
And did you go to another lounge?
It's kind of back and forth. There was a transitional period at one point. So I worked in mental health full-time in Boston. And after a year of frequenting that cigar lounge, I got really close with the owners. And I got so into cigars and the community and the experience that I first had, wanting to recreate that and have new experiences every time. And I remember one day I came in and someone asked, and this isn't to, call anyone out, but I remember someone came in and they asked someone who worked there a question. The guy didn't remember, but I knew the answer. So I kind of chimed in and was like, it was actually this Tatuaje cigar that came out this year, and that has broadleaf wrapper because it's a black and gold label, where the gold and black one is a Habano wrapper.
Yeah.
That's how Tatuaje uses their labels. And eventually the two owners who ran the place by themselves, they asked me to work for them part-time.
They probably had like an oh shit moment,
Well, but I was, I became friends with them, right? And I love them like family. Yeah, but they asked me to help out 2 to 3 days a week. So 2 to 3 days a week, I started working for them, and I just started picking up a couple shifts. And it was a way not only to get paid working at a cigar lounge and hang out, but I kept connecting with new people. I kept trying new cigars. I kept meeting industry people, right? Reps come in, territory managers, owners of company. That's where I first met Eric Espinoza. That's where I met Don Pepin Garcia. That's where I met Pete Johnson, was in that cigar lounge, right? When they would do these events. And I just loved being able to keep on having new experiences, not only smoking new cigars and blends and learning, but also meeting tons of people. Because I am, like you said in the beginning, very much a people person. I like listening to people's stories. I like analyzing people. That's the mental health professional in me. But so I did that for several years.
Nice.
Unfortunately, COVID happened. The lounge shut down, right? Just temporarily.
They're still running. And
so yeah, they're back up and running. They're doing better than ever. But things shut down. I quarantined in Long Island with my family, and I went back to Boston, was there for 6 months or so. And I wasn't working in the mental health business anymore at that time, and I moved back to Jersey.
So what happened when you told Pete that you're going from your job now to a cigar lounge? Like, was he excited because he's like, oh, now I know someone who could, get me cigars or anything like that?
Phil?
Phil, sorry, not Pete. Sorry,
no,
Phil.
That's Pete Johnson. That's why I was confused. You're good.
My fault.
Yeah, no,
Phil,
I mean, no, Phil. I've hooked I have too many cigars at home.
Yeah.
I have like over 4,000 cigars at home that I've collected over the years, but I'll send him care packages just because he smokes more often than me, and he was my start into.
Yeah. Was he upset when you said, "Hey, I'm going to do this cigar lounge"? Or wait, no, sorry. You were still up until COVID. You were still working at both spots.
Yeah, I was still working in the mental health industry part time,
and then COVID, you said
part time was there. Exactly. I left.
How was he when you left? Was he kind of like go do your thing? Or
well, no, of course. Phil's just an old friend, and he was like, "Yeah, do whatever you got to do." But he was sad, and I was sad. But we still keep in touch, right? I talk to him every month or two. I just sent him some cigars not too long ago. But basically, I left. I moved to Jersey, and I was always a customer of Casa de Montecristo, and it used to be JR Cigars back when I was a customer, but I was a customer of Casa de Montecristo on Route 17, the Paramus location. And one day I walked in and I had moved back. I was unemployed for 4 months, or for 2.5 months rather. And it was April, and I remember just walking in and I hit it off with the guys. I started talking about cigars. These guys I had never met, right? Or I'd seen 1 or 2 of them over the years, but I'd never met most of them. And we just connected. We became friendly. And then one of the supervisors there said, "Hey, do you want a job here? 1 or 2 days a week as a sales associate?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" So I did that. And then a position opened up to become full-time. So I became full-time. And then a position came up to be a sales lead, a supervisor. And I did that. And then I was, that's how I got my start with Casa.
Yeah, I remember when you came to the Whippany location.
Right.
People over here were like, "Oh, there's this new guy next door, Casey." He's like, I remember Nick was like, "Casey's just so fucking good." Like he was just like he's so friendly. He knows his shit. Like he's so easy to work with.
I didn't know that.
Not that whoever was here before you wasn't.
Right.
But I think we were just like, and I think in general when someone new starts out, I'm sure, when I started out, there was skepticism.
Of course.
Like when people start out, because most of the time when people do start out on this side, they don't know anything about cigars.
Totally.
Right? Like I want to shout him out, but like when we hired Tyler, he's a phenomenal videographer, editor, photographer. Like he knows that side of the business. Like he knows that side of our job.
Totally.
And then he was like, "I don't know much about cigars," but he's been able to, over the last few months, really start absorbing the cigar culture, the business. I think that's very important.
It is.
And then I don't want to feel like I'm calling anybody out. I feel like sometimes people come here and they're like, "It's just a job, clock in, clock out, or do my hours, collect a paycheck and that." But when you really start, and I felt like when I first started, I was just making sure like the video aspect of everything was going smooth because we changed. I feel like we kind of changed a lot. We changed the studio. We changed what we were filming, what we were doing. When I kind of had that down pat, that's when I felt like, okay. And I do credit Nick for like Nick being like, "You're going to come in this meeting, or you're going to," when I meet with like John Huber or Terrence Riley, when I sit down with them and have lunch, "You're going to come with us.
Right.
And you're going to just, like, you could either just listen, but I want you to kind of engage." And I think that's important because at the end of the day, I love Terrence Riley. Every time we have lunch, we're talking about movies and sports.
He's great.
Right? Yeah. Like
he's such a good person for this industry.
He knows so many movies. His favorite director is my favorite director.
Nice.
So we'll go toe to toe. Like, no, that movie's better than. But it's nice but then we get into like the cigar talk, right? So I feel like that's kind of what you get as you go in there. But so like, I'll backtrack a bit. When you started, everyone was like, there's this guy next door that's just, it's going to be great for next door. I'm like, all right, let's get it. Let's see. I want it. And you've always been accommodating to us when we have to film over there.
Yeah.
You're very like collaborative with, the past event we did in August with Havana Night. You were making sure I was set up. You were like, "Hey, if we can get this," like, it was just nice because there's times where just in general, not even at work, where like communication just lacks.
Yeah, communication's important.
It's very important.
But I feel like we all work together here for sure.
Very much so. Yeah. Very much so. So when you were able to when you joined Casa, you said you started out Paramus and then came here.
Yeah, no. There was some other transitions too.
Okay, what else?
So I started in Paramus, right, doing some sales for them, and I knew about cigars, right? I knew about cigars. I knew about product. I knew very little about business. Casa taught me almost every single thing I know about business, between the supervisors and the managers I've had and the CEOs and the leaders in the companies that we're a part of. They've taught me everything, pretty much everything I know about business.
So when you say business, like
back end of business,
the back end of
operations, stuff like that. I knew some basic stuff just because of common sense.
Did you know, like, because correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like you are kind of at the helm of many things, but one is like setting up events. Was that something that you learned back in Boston?
I learned in Boston, but not at this scale. Not at the scale in terms of marketing, in terms of promotions, right? It was for a long time, and there's nothing wrong with this because it sometimes worked, but for a long time it was, okay, a rep comes in, you put some product on a table, you put a nice tablecloth, and then you give some deals. And that's about it, right? And it's cool, right? The community's so unique and special in the cigar business that it works and we can create a good time and a fun time. But Casa and JR elevates that event experience like no other I've ever experienced before, and they taught me how to do that. So everything about business outside of like basic operations, they helped me grow and learn about.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest events here for sure was last summer with Guy Fieri.
Oh yeah, that was wild. That was cool. That was really cool.
You can't get anyone to stay after 5 o'clock at any job. Half of our side was over there.
Yeah, everyone wanted to be there. Of course.
In line, like they were happy because like people were waiting in line, but they could go in first because they're right next door. Yep. That was like, you could not move. Like I was filming the event, you couldn't move without bumping into.
There's a line out the door along the side of the building. I took a little video of it. Yep. I remember it was wild.
I remember you were just like locked in the entire time. Even like Havana night, we were just joking how like you were just like locked in.
Yeah, making sure everything's running smoothly.
You were in just a plain t-shirt and jeans, and then you turn around and you're like Superman. You ripped off, you had that nice suit. Yeah, that nice like suit, the glasses, you were ready to go. But you could tell like you were just like, like it's business time. I'm not going to bother you with any BS. But like, like you were just... But you still made sure. You guys good? I think you were in the middle of walking and you stopped and asked Tyler and I, you guys good? You good? I'm like, yeah, you can.
Well, but
that's you though.
But and I appreciate the compliment. Yeah. Thank you. But I think that's really important, right? It's always about meeting people's needs in any sort of hospitality or customer service business, whether that's the people you work with, the people you work for, the people that work for you, or the customers. It's always about meeting people where they're at and making sure all the needs are met because we want to cultivate experience, right? That's what in my opinion, yes, experience in lots of industries matter, of course, but especially in the cigar retail world. This isn't just the retail business, it's the experiential retail business. And there's a big, big difference.
And I think that I know you mentioned retail. You can also adapt that for, online, like, if you have an e-commerce space.
Of course.
Just the
online experience.
The customer service aspect
Absolutely.
of it, right? So you'll say, would you say that obviously learning the business side when, during that transition, how much did that elevate how much did that elevate you once you kind of like learned all of the aspects? How did you feel like you went like, did you like kind of like power up, you felt like, or
I started as a sales associate and a sales lead in Paramus. And Paramus is such a cool location. Yes. Casa has tons of cool locations and they're all unique in their own ways. But the general manager there has been there for 30 years. One of the sales leads there has been there for 32 years, right? They have people who have been there for so long because they love the experience. They're good at what they do. They want to stay. People love having them around. So I had amazing mentors and amazing teachers.
Was Linda one of them?
Yeah, Linda. Linda was my manager. She was amazing. She taught me so much about business. There's another guy named Mike Vanny who's been there for 30 plus years. He's amazing. And basically, I learned a lot about business from them. And this is the cool thing about life, but about the cigar business, you're always learning. Yeah. I have been involved with cigars in some capacity for more than like 13 years now, and I am continuing to learn on a regular basis. Still to this day, I still don't know everything, and it's impossible to know everything in this business, which is such a unique factor. I feel like I always want to grow. I always want to learn. But in the cigar business, especially, I feel like it's endless. You're always going to learn. So I started in Paramus. I learned a lot about business. I kept learning about product. And then I moved to Washington, D.C. for 2 years. Nice. I was the general manager in the Washington, D.C. location of Casa de Montecristo.
Nick went there one time. He said it's a beautiful store. I've always really wanted to go.
Yeah, it's really, really upscale, high end. It's a really cool experience. It's 2 floors. There's like a private lounge upstairs. Nice. We have 2 bars there. So that was a really cool experience. Then I moved to New York City, and I was the general manager in the New York City location. And then finally I came to the Whippany location.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So I was
a lot did
all
happen.
over. Yeah. I was all over, and all the businesses, right? They're all unique in their own way, right? Whippany is this really big store where we have a restaurant and a bar and a lounge, where in New York, it's just the lounge. And then DC, it's the bar and the lounge. Mm-hmm. So, right. I learned about the spirits and drinks industry and how to pair well in DC. I learned in New York about a completely different side of the business. I learned in Whippany so much about this side of the business.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been actually, like, the day before the world shut down in COVID, we filmed, this is probably one of the coolest moments. Got to film Rafa Nadal and AJ Fernandez.
Oh, nice. That is cool.
I was like this close from AJ Fernandez. Yep. And at the time, I was only 10 months in. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I didn't get to really appreciate it enough. But now I've been here 6 years. I'm like, everyone calls AJ Fernandez the cigar godfather. Yeah,
he's a legend.
He's everywhere. Yeah, he's a legend. So seeing him there, it was just great.
Yep.
But I loved that lounge. I loved that. I loved where it was in the city. I loved the experience. I've shot in a few events there.
Yep.
I really do enjoy. I enjoy that look, and I have been fortunate enough to go to a few different lounges. I went to one in Nashville. That one was in the Gulch area where there's all these good restaurants.
Yeah, it's a hopping area.
That one's a really nice area, and it was pretty big too. And they've done a few events there. But yeah, that's interesting, that a point you make where you can go to any, we'll stick with Casa, and you can go to any Casa, and it has that different feeling, probably of the area it's in or the city. Like the spirit of that. And I think that's really, really cool.
Absolutely.
That's pretty sweet. Do you I was gonna ask you something, I forgot. Do you ever, when you're kind of like when you're in the zone of, like, at your job and you're working, do you feel that your energy? Because like I said, I've rarely seen, I don't work with you every day like next door. But do you feel like as if when you go into work and you have a good day, that would kind of set the tone of the lounge?
I think that's helpful.
Yeah.
Right. I was I'm part-time now with Casa because of certain things that in my personal life. But when I was full-time, I definitely think that's an important factor to set a tone, right? Not just for the customer experience, but for all the tobacconists in there, everyone working, so we can have a positive mindset and enjoy what we do. Mm-hmm. I always like to say, because one of my mentors always told me, if take things seriously, right? Take a few things seriously. Not yourself, but take a few things you do really seriously. So I took this job very seriously. I take the cigar business very seriously, but have fun with it. Mm-hmm. If you're not having fun, you're missing the point to life. So I always want to make sure I'm having fun. And sometimes, because I'm human, I take myself too seriously and I forget to have fun. But I always wanted to come in with a positive mindset, making sure we all had fun, but took this seriously and got the job done too. So it definitely helped create a positive, fun, energetic, and helpful mindset for the team. But they helped me too do that. The whole team here was so vital for me to continue to grow, to accept me, for me to accept them, so we could really work as a team. Because yes, they're in companies or corporations, right? You have like a hierarchy in terms of, right, there's an associate, there's a lead, there's an assistant manager, general manager. But when I'm in there, titles don't matter. Yeah. We all want to work together, and that's it. And I mean that. That has been my experience. When we all put our egos to the side, I always say, leave your ego at the front door, and we just work together as a team to make sure that we can deliver the best experience for everyone. That's what it's all about.
I think that's really important advice, specifically for the cigar, the cigar retail, side of things, and even our side as well.
Yeah.
If you could put your ego at the door and kind of realize, like, this stuff is for the consumer.
Of course.
Whether it be people online watching our videos or, people coming into a store, and whether it's their 100th time there or their first time there, it's all about that, that person, right?
Yep.
And I think that's really important. And I love what you said earlier too about kind of always learning and being a sponge, right? When I'm with my friends or family, they're like, "Wow, you know so much about cigars." I'm like, "I know
yeah, but I'm sure you do. Yeah,
no, I'm just saying I know a fraction of it, but that goes to show like there's still so much to learn.
Absolutely,
and you can always go to say too with every cigar that comes out, specific brands, specific lines, or anything, specific sizes too. You can learn something from that.
Yeah.
So when the cigars are coming out all the time, I feel like that helps you still not like get like not bored. Not I don't want to say bored of it, but not like I already know what it's gonna be. It comes from so and so.
Right.
It was made in Nicaragua. You could still learn from everything, because most cigars have a message, a meaning.
Yeah.
They're paying homage to someone, and
of course.
that makes that experience different. So you're always learning, and I'm sure. Even like since COVID, the last 5 years, cigar, growing tobacco, the branding aspect has evolved too in just that short amount of time. You know?
And they're all really important factors.
Yes,
every single detail comes together to create that unique experience. Again, because a blend is a blend, and the blends can taste similar or a little different, but again, to your point, the branding, the packaging, and the story it tells, because as humans we love a good story. Right? We want a good story, so if there's a good story that comes with the cigar, that's going to draw us in even more.
I feel like it's ad nauseum for our listeners when I say this. I really do compare cigars to movies, maybe because I do that on I went to school for that. I make short films. I enjoy the craft of movie making. But I remember even like a few years ago, Martin Scorsese says like, I'm still learning. I'm in my 80s.
Totally.
I mean, I made Goodfellas. I've made some classics.
Yeah, of course.
But he's still learning. And I think if you have that mindset of kind of always learning, people want to say like Tarantino rips other genres off or other movies off or whether I don't look at it that way. I think he is really like people pay homage to certain cigars.
Right.
I think he is paying homage to that because
that's
what influenced
He uses
him.
it as inspiration.
Right.
It's okay to use things as inspiration, but really when you said that thing about Scorsese, which I didn't know he said, and I love Scorsese, it's a humble mindset.
Oh, yeah.
When you go at it with humility, right, and be like, I don't know everything, right, then you can learn and continue to grow. The second you say you know everything, or if I ever say, well, I know everything about this, I know how to do this perfectly, I'm never going to grow.
No.
I'm not going to have fun. I want to keep growing. Yeah, of course.
And what I could keep talking. I'll talk one more point about Scorsese. What I love about him is he kind of gives props to newer filmmakers, directors. Like I always see him loving this director, Ari Aster.
Oh, I love Ari Aster. I just saw Eddington. It's amazing.
We had an episode about it too where he saw it. Yeah.
It was amazing. I'm a big Ari Aster fan.
Yeah.
And Midsommar was like one of my all-time favorites, and then this was great. Yeah.
No, I heard this was really good. But Scorsese's always saying like every time an Ari Aster film comes out, he's like, it blew me away.
Yeah.
And I'm always thinking, I was like, man, if Scorsese was in his 20s now or 30s now, he probably would be making those type of movies because although, Taxi Driver wasn't really like that, Mean Streets, they were gritty in an own way, They were very gritty in that way. But
absolutely.
I like that he is kind of not, because you see it a lot of sports, right? Former athletes are like, oh, today's game is terrible, we hate it. Instead of kind of being like, it's evolved.
Yeah.
Right? And like I said, I don't really see that in the industry. I feel like in the cigar industry, maybe, you could say like, someone who's been in the industry 60 years, they're blending and making their cigars differently. And then you have like these, the Pete Johnsons, Nick Melillos, John Ubers, there's a little more, to me, like there's a little more grunge or edge to it.
Absolutely.
And you don't see the old man being like, that's not the way to do it. Like, I agree. Like, what I'm saying? Like there's this found respect for everyone, I think in my opinion there is.
No, I agree.
I'm sure there's drama and stuff too, but
always, but I 100% agree.
Yeah.
And really when you say something like that, it makes me think if I'm new to the cigar business and I have some, person who's been in the industry for 40 years and they don't like change is difficult for everyone, and they don't like the evolution of the cigar business or anything, and they come up to me, they say, the cigar business has changed or the cigar world has changed. What I say, because I don't want to start an argument, I'm just like, oh, okay. But in my head, I'm saying, well, it didn't change on my watch, right? I just got here. So if you're not happy with that, you let it change, right?
Yeah.
For the negative. So I don't know what to tell you, right?
Yeah.
But I don't run into that often where I get like, no, I don't. It's changed for the worse. Like it's very rare.
You see it a lot in multimedia, like the multimedia world, film, and you do see, I know it's kind of off the beaten path, but like SNL just added 5 new members to their cast, and they all got their start on TikTok.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think like 3 out of 5 of them were doing a lot of stuff on TikTok and got famous from TikTok. And people could
say, that's the thing nowadays.
But people could say, oh my God, like, oh, they're TikTok stars on SNL. There's TikTok stars in multi-million-dollar movies.
Yeah, of course. Nowadays,
like that's the world we're living in. Whether you like it or not, whether you like it or not,
you got to adapt.
But then you have guys like Denzel saying, like, back in the day, you actually had to be a good actor to be in movies.
For sure.
I like him saying that because I don't think everyone. And this is probably me sounding salty. I don't think everyone should be in movies.
Totally.
Right?
Except for black and white.
But I don't, I'm not in the industry long enough, the cigar industry long enough to be like, not everyone can make like, what if there's one day where I'm like, I do want to make a cigar line?
Yeah.
What would be stopping me? We live in a world where we can do that. But if I'm going to start something that's serious, that's going to take a lot of time. And everyone's, a lot of manufacturers come on here and say, if you want to make money, do not be a do not be a cigar company.
They do say that.
Been a thing. Especially if you've started in the since 2010, let's say, last 15 years. It's tough, but it's also they are part of a culture now where I do feel like cigars are prominent in a lot of in pop culture in a lot of things.
Yeah.
In a lot like you see anyone who wins a sports championship, what are they doing?
Lighting up a good cigar. Absolutely.
Cigars symbolize, power,
yep,
kind of badassness in pop culture when it comes to movies and shows.
Yep.
So it's kind of associating with that. It's not, it's not like, oh my God, they're so bad for you, blah, blah, blah. It's more so of what they represent now. So, so I wanted, this was kind of similar to Mike Herklotz's conversation in terms of, we were talking about cigar lounge etiquette, but I kind of I would love for you to like dive deep into kind of like the inner workings of the benefits of visiting a cigar shop.
For sure.
And a lounge. I think there's I think you can kind of get cigars anywhere, whether it be brick and mortar, whether it be other stores or online.
Right.
I think the accessibility to cigars are kind of endless.
Yep.
But I would just love to hear kind of like your point of view, since you really said for the better part of 13 years on and off, you've been in that world.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would just, for any new cigar smoker out there listening, what would be the benefits of going to a cigar shop? And then we could talk about the lounge experience.
For sure. I mean, I'll start off by saying you brought up, right, the 2 obvious ways to get cigars, either online or in person. They're both necessities for this business and industry, right? Because people always have personal wants and needs. Online's convenient. Online's easy, right? Someone who works the overnight shift and has to get and sleeps during the day, right? Cigar lounges aren't open during overnight a lot of the times, right? So if they're sleeping during the day, they're ordering their cigars online, and then they can smoke on their shift if they work outside or something like that. I know a lot of security guys who smoke on the job, and they're doing overnight shifts. So they're both necessities. For me and my personal wants and needs, the in-person experience was an amazing one. And I'll talk more about that first time I smoked that La Aurora with my buddy Phil in Watertown, Massachusetts at Cigar and Lounge. When I walked in, it was not what I was expecting. I had a very clear image in my mind of what a cigar smoker looks like, right? Everyone does. And then, so when I started smoking cigars a lot, all my friends who were my age back when I was 20 years old when I first started smoking, they were like, right? That's not what a 20-year-old kid does, right? 20-year-old kids don't smoke cigars. And back then it was legal to be in a cigar lounge and smoke at the age of 20. But it was not what I was expecting. So that was a nice surprise. And I walk into the humidor. You get a whiff of cedar, this nice Spanish cedar smell that smells really good. You look at all this beautiful packaging, all these cool different cigars. I was overwhelmed a little. I didn't know what I was doing, but Phil, right, he bought me that La Aurora, and we sat down on this comfy leather couch, and we talked about
sink into,
right? We sink into. He taught me how to cut it. He taught me how to light it, and we talked a little bit about the cigar. We did because I wanted to learn. But we talked about life, right? And Phil and I, remember, he didn't want me to work at that job. He didn't like me. And I wanted him to like me, but I didn't really like him.
Yeah.
And we became best friends because of a cigar. Because cigars brought us together. We talked about life. We stopped looking for what separated from one another, the differences, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about the things we could connect about and relate to, even though he's 15 years older than me, right? And it was the start of a really cool friendship and my journey in the cigar world. But just, I remember looking back, and it kind of I want to talk about the point you brought up when you start talking to a random guy, right, in a cigar lounge. A couple months back, I was in the lounge here in Whippany, and I see what looks like a lawyer. He's on calls. He's on his laptop. He's in a really nice suit. And a guy walks in who's covered in dirt, right? He was like landscaping. He had a bright yellow shirt on. It was like a landscaping shirt. And he asked the guy if he could sit across from him, the lawyer. And the lawyer was like, yeah, sit down. He mouthed it because he was on the phone. And then I said, okay, cool. That's a cool experience. I didn't think much of it. But then I walked by again 45 minutes later, and they were having drinks, and they were laughing, and they were connecting, right? Cigar lounges, what it does, this cultural and socially cool thing, it brings people together who would not normally mix, right? Those two would most likely never interact outside of a cigar lounge, but because they happen to be here, they both connected with a cigar, they could talk about whatever they were talking about. I wasn't eavesdropping, but they connected, right? And so that's a beautiful thing that happens in cigar lounges. And it creates such a cool, unique experience being able to go in person and have a special experience. Yes, we want the great smells of Spanish cedar. We want the tobacconist to hand pick us something based on what we want and what we like and what we're looking for and what we're trying to smoke that's new. But I think all human beings want to connect with others, right? We're not a species made for isolation. All humans want to connect. Cigar lounges is the ideal place to connect with other people. You can connect with people here that you would never think of connecting with about anything.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal point, because you look at any other, hospitality establishment. It could be hotel, restaurant, winery, bar. There's some people who are at a bar who are not there to get, wasted. Totally. They're just there, might be tagging along with a friend.
For sure.
They may not even want to be there, right? Hotel is just for you to kind of, stay while you're either on vacation or traveling for work, or you just have to rest your head, go to sleep because you are traveling.
Totally.
Restaurants too, it's like, I guess I'll just tag along. If I don't know how many times when I was in my late teens, early 20s, where like my friends want to go to like an Applebee's, like I really want to go, but I just want to go out, The cigar, it's a very specific reason to come to a store and a lounge.
Yep.
You like you said, you have that lawyer making the business call, or you have someone who does landscaping who's coming in after a long day, especially with the way the summers are.
Yep.
How hot they are. Can have a drink, sit down in the air conditioning.
Yeah, you want to relax.
Really,
that's definitely a
really,
big important aspect of cigar lounges.
Yes, it's more. Yeah, it definitely has to do with relaxing.
Yep.
But yeah, there's that common goal or common ground of cigars.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
And it's people coming in, wanting to enjoy a cigar, needing cigars, however you want to, kind of spin it. But I think, that's the reason I had that conversation with a gentleman older than me, who we have both different backgrounds. He works down the street at like Novartis. I'm working here, you have people who are coming in here, like you said, all the time with different backgrounds, but the common goal is having a cigar. And most likely they're not having the same cigar as you. So they're like, what are you smoking? How do you like it? What are you smoking? And that's where you can kind of exchange that info too.
Absolutely.
And find out like, how's your, what's your palate like?
Yep.
Right?
The conversations are endless of what you can talk about.
And even the wait staff in the lounge is very, very personable, very friendly.
Absolutely, especially here.
Yes.
Yep,
I mean, there's times where if there was one time I went next door with Nick, it was right before my first kid, and he graced me with an Opus X.
Nice.
And he knew the waitress at the time, and he was like, "We have these. What would pair well with them?" And like I think he knew what he would have like had.
Yeah.
But she was basically like a cappuccino or a beer, and it was so she had that recommendation for us. Like you don't like. I feel like when you go to a restaurant and you're like, "What's your favorite thing on the menu?" They're like. Or they're nice, and I'm sure they get that question all the time. But they're like, yeah, the tacos are good,
right? Or they might upsell you and just say the most expensive thing. Always, I see that a lot of the time, and I'm sure there are people who recommend great things, but here, right, specifically in Whippany and at Casa, like we're really trying to make sure enhance the experience for everyone, and we're trying to make sure that the pairing is great, right?
Yeah, and another feeling I get, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like even if you had to like sell X amount of one brand or whatever, right? If someone comes in and is like, this is gonna be my third time smoking. I don't think you're gonna get at a store where like, well, we have to kind of sell those, so I'm just gonna direct them there. I feel like you guys are very genuine and like, all right, if you're very new to it, here are some options for you to try.
Totally.
Right. I love when I see next door Steve pull out the tray, and then you're pulling out singles and you do that. And you guys, I don't ever see you guys pushing to sell someone who is new, or maybe who's not new to smoking, but new to buying them in store.
Yep.
You're not going to push a box on them.
Yeah, not necessarily, unless they need it.
Unless if they're like,
for the occasion.
But I remember for my wedding, I went to Felix. I was like, can you let me know what cigar to get for a wedding where there's maybe 10 legit cigar smokers, but cigars that someone could just grab and enjoy. He went Romeo and Juliet to 1870.
I was going to guess, it's either, and knowing Felix, it was either a Fuente Chateau or a Romeo y Julieta.
Yeah.
Because those are two great options for weddings. They're solid products that don't break the bank. They're consistent, and they're great for someone who enjoys cigars normally to smoke, or for the new smoker.
You just got a glimpse of
100%.
Casey at work in the lounge. But he's like the Romeo and Julieta 1875. He's like, get it in like the Robusto size. And he basically gave me the speech. When you're at a wedding, you don't want to be handing out Churchills. Because you don't want everyone outside smoking.
Right, for an hour and a half. Right?
You want them outside. And he's like, get 2 boxes. And sure enough, those boxes went. Because they were like, they're on the table, and people are like, oh yeah, cigars, why not?
Right, stuff their
I don't
pockets.
even smoke, but like, let me grab it. But I mean, that's the experience you get. And I do, every time I'm going there, it's more so to ask like, hey, can I shoot here? Or like, totally. I'm getting something for someone. So I'll ask if there's a certain size, but I do like going next door and, observing. I never worked in the mental health industry, but I love observing everybody.
Yeah.
I love observing.
Good people watching in cigar lounges, that's for sure.
But you can tell, because you guys have a few employees there, so everyone can be helped. That's a major thing that I think kind of gets overlooked too, is that, at the size of this lounge, I'm sure if you're going to a smaller lounge, there's not a lot of, you're not going to have 4 or 5 sale reps there, or not 2 managers on it. It's
probably not necessary for other ones.
But like for here, I like that you guys are never letting a line form, never letting anyone waiting. And I know that sounds silly, but in today's world where everything everyone wants
quick.
Yeah, about quick turnover. But it's also, I'll also see one of you guys spend 5, 10, maybe even 15 minutes with one customer.
Absolutely.
Really just getting to know what they want.
Absolutely.
I think that is the most underrated part of a cigar lounge, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's because you want to cultivate, again, and I use this word a lot talking about cigars, but it's true. You want to cultivate that unique and special experience for someone. So if someone wants the experience of, hey, I need 2 boxes for a wedding, in and out in 5 minutes, that's doable. But if they want to learn, right, I can talk to someone for 15 minutes, no problem. Right, it's very clear to me, and it was taught to me, and has been my experience. We have so many cigars to offer, right? I think over 1,800 different facings of cigars in this lounge specifically, and we're putting boxes away, we're organizing, we're cleaning, we're planning for events. But the second a customer walks through the door, they are priority number one. And we drop what we're doing, we go to them, and we make sure that their needs and wants are met.
Not to get on a deeper level, but that's, just the retail experience. I worked retail for a lot of years as well, clothing retail. And even when I walk in now, to like an Old Navy, or if I walk in it's interesting to see like how some employees are right there to greet you and help you, and some are just
hanging out on their phone. I get it, and it's hard.
No,
and there's downtime.
There is downtime,
but
for
you just
sure.
got to know. Yeah, you just got to jet to a customer because.
But I think
you want to help.
It's, and maybe maybe it's also me getting older and being like, you'd expect someone to kind of always be there to help. I don't think I'm owed help, but retail in general, they might have the mindset of like, well, everything's online, so why do I have to really try hard? The lounge, every lounge I've been to, whether it is a Casa or it's other lounges I've gone to, it always seems like you walk in, things and whatever they're doing stops.
Yep.
And it's now you are priority number one.
Absolutely.
And I think that's another thing that, when you go to lounges, if you've never been to a lounge, like, you should expect that. I'm not trying to set any, bar high here, but I know when I go next door, it's, I just see it. I see once they walk in, the double doors and, past whatever tables on the left. Hey, how you doing? 3 seconds later, can I help you with anything? Even when I'm walking in, like, they know me next door. They recognize my face. They're still like, what can I help you with? I'm like, no, I'm good, but I appreciate it. But it's just ingrained in everyone in that lounge to do that, and that's either something you said or was set prior, but it's something that I think is important specifically for cigars.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And when people walk in, right, we want to connect with others. And even if it's some guy I know who smokes the same cigar every single day for years on end, I'm still going to greet them. I'm still going to say hi. I'm still going to ask them how they're doing. Personally, because I genuinely care. Yeah. But also, maybe they have a change of heart. Maybe they want to try something new. Maybe I'm going to try and push them onto a new cigar just for the heck of it, to have some diversity in their palate, which does happen. And I've seen people who stick to one brand, and one day they try a new cigar because of a recommendation we offered them, and they ended up loving it. And then they want to try more lines or blends from a different brand, right? So they have a more diverse palette and a variety to choose from in the future. But what comes with that is people want to be known too, right? Yeah. It's like, oh, hey Chuck, hey Norm, right? How you doing? How's the family, right? I know what's going on in their personal lives, right? They yes, the connection, but they want to be known too, and that's a really warm feeling that happens in cigar lounges.
I love it.
Yeah, man.
Well, I appreciate you coming on today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
I loved hearing your story. Like I said, I always admire what you guys do next door. I do appreciate you coming on. We'd love to have you on again if
whenever.
Time permits. But yeah, thank you guys for watching our latest episode of Long Ash Podcast. Make sure to comment, like, subscribe. If you have any questions for Casey, leave them in the comments. I'll relay them to him, and then he can give me a response. But thank you guys again for watching, and until next time.